From Informa Tech Target, I'm Beth Pariseau, and this is IT Ops Query. This podcast distills the signal from the noise about enterprise software development and platform engineering. Each week, we'll talk to expert guests about the latest tech industry news and trends that engineering and IT leaders need to know. Don't forget to subscribe to IT Ops Query for more conversations on AI and the future of the enterprise digital workspace. Patrick Lin is Senior Vice President and General Manager of Observability at Splunk under Cisco. He previously worked as Chief Product Officer at SignalFX, which Splunk acquired in 2019. In introduction to Splunk's recent State of Observability 2025 report, Lin wrote, quote, "Software doesn't just support the business, it is the business. As digital experiences have become the primary vehicle of customer engagement, observability practices have an impact beyond server rooms and NOCs." Thanks for joining me, Patrick.
It's great to be here, Beth.
Likewise. So, what exactly is the effect of observability beyond IT? How does it affect businesses?
Well, that's a really great question because I think, as that quote kind of indicates, I think there are a lot of folks who think of observability as, hey, this is a continuation of the reactive monitoring practices that we've had to have for decades now at this point. And I think the thing about observability is that it does provide greater depth into what's going on in not just sort of the servers and so on, but into the application, into the user experience, into how certain critical business journeys or business workflows are happening, right? And because of that, I think it provides a lot more information about how things are actually playing out on the ground, and therefore give you the ability to say, okay, well, beyond just knowing whether my thing is working as expected or not, right? I can get a lot of insight into, hey, how are users reacting to these things? Is this investment that we're making in this area being fully utilized? And so all those things play into a lot of key decisions you have to make, whether it's about the roadmap, whether it's about further investments you want to make, whether it's about how you want to improve your customer support, right? Those are all things that are affected by having that greater level of visibility.
Right. And it has a direct effect on revenue, doesn't it? I think that's something the survey found.
Yeah, that's something that I thought was quite interesting. That one kind of rose to the top for a bunch of the respondents. And I think that it really is the thing that lets people know when their services are performing as they should, right? And I think that it's not an overstatement to say that so much of the business is conducted digitally these days, right? The app in some cases is more important than the brand. And so the fact that those can be kept up and running as expected with the help of observability, right, means that it has very direct impact on the bottom line, right? The other thing, really quickly, just to add to that, right, is that I think a couple years ago we did a study on the hidden cost of downtime, and I think that spoke to a variety of other impacts to the business as well, right? So if you are not up and running, right, then there's a variety of other things beyond the direct revenue impact, right? Reputational harm. It prevents your developers from working on the thing that they're supposed to because they're busy responding to the incident and filling out post-incident report and so on, right? So life is better, right?
Right.
You've got the observability going in the right way.
And just to be specific, according to the report that I have here, of 1,885 respondents, 65% say their observability practice positively influences revenue, and 64% say their observability practice positively impacts product roadmaps. Is there any example of that you've heard of?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I probably can't go into naming names as far as stories go, but I think it's a fairly common thing that I hear when I talk to customers, right? This is the reason why they're interested in observability and developing a better practice around it is because they see that, especially the ones who are still sort of trying to get things going, right? They see how their reaction time is slow. They're not being able to look at things in a proactive fashion. They're making decisions about what to do based as much on gut as on data, right? And a lot of what observability does is it brings data. So whether that's to things that I talked about earlier, hey, how are users responding to certain things, or what is the back end actually doing? Sometimes the decisions about how to improve the back end are made based on the gut instinct of the development teams, right? And with observability, you can see how things are really happening.
Right. So what's the biggest challenge in enterprise observability right now?
I think there are a couple of different ones, right? I mean, I think that what I do feel like people have gotten a handle on more and more is around the idea of standardization, right? And so you see open telemetry being adopted more and more, right? And to me, that's an indication of the understanding that It is a way to not just free yourselves vendor-specific lock-in on agents and stuff, right? But it's also a way to help you standardize better on the data that you send in, right? So
Hmm.
that irrespective of what tools you end up using, the information is going to be constant, and it's be constant across multiple services, multiple teams, right? And
Hmm.
so, like that kind of understanding of the value of standardization and its correlation with OTel indicates that is now becoming more and more common, right? Now, when it comes to what kind of barriers there are, I think that a lot of this is now once you can standardize the data, right? It's about how you're able to use it. Are you organized in a way that lets
Mm.
you take advantage of it? Have you gotten the teams that have to use it to the point where they are consistent with it, right? And I think years ago, I used to say that the thing that you would find in customer environments is that there's always like teams that are out ahead of everybody else who are very much interested in how to do things in a way that gives them greater insight, gets them faster reaction time, et cetera. And then there are those who struggle to spell observability.
Huh, right.
And so I think that's a thing that when you look at organizations who are trying to move in the right direction, it is about how do they establish that culture? How do they establish that practice in a way that's consistent across the organization?
Hmm. Yeah, there's also observability under IT and then for security and SecOps. Um,
Yeah.
eh, Splunk's offered both sides of that fence for quite a while. So,
Yeah.
is there any evolution that you see happening among customers in terms of collaboration among those teams? Has that changed at all in recent years?
Yeah, that was something that we saw quite a bit actually in this report that we just did on the state of observability, right? Where
Hmm.
there was an increase in the percentage of folks who talk about the collaboration
Hmm.
across these sort of different disciplines, if you will, right? Where on one side it's focused primarily on say security use cases, on the other side more performance, reliability, et cetera, of the applications. And I think that the thing that I would attribute this to partly is just the maturation of the tool set, right? When you can, as in our case, right, say, okay, things that I'm seeing about application performance or security can be readily seen by the security teams, right? Like that kind of
Mm.
information sharing, generally, I think it's going to help you decrease the time that your outages are going to take, right? Just because you can eliminate things, potential root causes, deal with them more quickly. I think the other thing that I do think that we're seeing, maybe it wasn't represented as much in the report itself, right? But I think in more recent customer conversations, I feel like the sort of prevalence of AI as a topic makes it so that you can't really think about one without the other. Right.
Mm.
If you're using AI, yeah, you're concerned obviously about how is it performing. All the sort of standard golden signals are still there, but you also are very much concerned about security because it is a new area to be concerned
Yeah.
about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of AI, there was a really interesting line in the State of Observability report that says AI is a proverbial double edged sword for observability practitioners. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that anytime you've got a new technology, right, on one hand, it is something that can really empower you to do new things, right? And so I think we've seen quite a lot of interest in what we're doing around bringing agentic AI into helping do troubleshooting faster, helping you to sort of set things up correctly, how you get the right data in, right, and drive more intelligent automation. But the flip side, of course, is that as people are using AI, they also realize that it's something that needs oversight. And so they go, okay, how do I know what it's doing? How do I make sure it's doing what I need it to? Right. And so, yeah, it's on both sides of the equation, so to speak. Right. But I think the good thing is that I think observability vendors like us recognize that. And I think we are very, very quickly driving towards capabilities that will help people understand what's going on, but and also to use it to improve on their ability to be proactive in how they respond to incidents and so on. Right.
Yeah. And AI, it's interesting because AI in various forms has been part of observability for years now under AI ops. But of course, now there's generative and then agentic AI. So, what are you seeing in terms of that transition between the different forms of AI among enterprises? And how do you expect it to evolve going forward?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because I think the more traditional forms of AI with machine learning and so on, I think where we saw them in observability was primarily around anomaly detection,
Hmm.
right? So whether that is in machine learning or just more call it advanced statistical models, right?
Hmm.
That's where we had a language for saying, hey, when is something not normal, right?
Hmm.
Which is better than, oh, if it's greater than 90, alert me. That's this terrible noise, right? And so I think that that piece, while today is still primarily centered on machine learning, I think we'll see that evolve toward things that are similar in concept to the language models you see out there today, right?
Hmm.
We talked at our recent conference in Boston last month about the Cisco Data Fabric and
Yeah.
machine data lake and foundational models that you can build on top of that, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that just like there are foundational models built on human language and so on, right? You can do foundational models that are built on machine data.
Hmm.
And so our belief is that as you take those models, they may one day supplant what you do with machine learning today in terms of the accuracy of anomaly detection and helping you predict when something is actually behaving as it should or not, right?
Yeah. And in the survey, I think it was just 18% of respondents were using agents so far. But how do you expect AI agents to change what's already being done with Gen AI chatbots and has been done with the machine learning? What difference will AI agents make for observability practitioners?
Yeah, I mean, agents really, I think the way I think of them is that they are effectively additional teammates for you, right?
Mhm.
So with machine learning and so on, that's about, okay, how do I bring better information to a human, right? With the AI assistants and the sort of first generation of those using generative AI, a lot of that is saying, okay, how can I make that human a little bit more effective, right? But
Mm,
very much still the main character, as it were, right? Now, with AI agents, you have effectively non-player characters that are part of this, and but they're
right.
helping you, right?
Yeah.
And they're part of your team. And so I think that idea is one that we've been pushing very hard, and I think that it's going to bring a lot of benefit in terms of how it can magnify the impact of what the people can do. Right.
Mm,
In terms of how much information you can go through and process and understand, in terms of how much data it can look through and determine, hey, what is the right data to be sending in terms of saying, hey, these are the right ways to think about what constitutes normal behavior, right?
mm.
Things that would otherwise take someone pretty skilled with the statistics and all the rest of it to be able to figure out, agents can do better for us, I think.
And then to bring it back to that double-edged sword,
Yeah.
what challenges does observability for AI agents bring to the table as people start to use them more?
Yeah. I mean, I think that part of it is just that with AI, it's running on a fairly expensive infrastructure, right?
Hmm.
That's out there. And like any sort of new capability, you have to figure out, okay, what is the right way to use it? Am I getting the benefit out of it? If I'm running these things constantly, then am I getting the outcomes that I want in a cost-effective fashion, right?
Yeah.
So that's one key piece is just sort of understanding that. But I think it's also just even understanding the behavior of the agents and what their interactions are.
Yeah.
That's going to be a pretty interesting thing. Now, fundamentally, right, at the base of it, it's a lot of it feels a lot like distributed tracing in a way, right? Because you are tracing what these agents are doing and so on. But as
Hmm.
as they become more autonomous, as there is more interaction between them, then understanding that interaction, understanding what that translated into as far as the outcome goes, right? That's
Mm.
going to be critical to understand,
Hmm.
and that's why you're going to need observability to help you out, right?
Yeah. And there was talk at Splunk.conf about OpenLLM making its way into the observability cloud to do that kind of distributed tracing for agents. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to push that one as much as we can, right? Because I
Mhm.
think this is one of the things that Splunk and Cisco are pushing out there, right? Is this notion of using these kinds of standards to make sure that these agents are off in some walled garden doing something that you don't
Right.
understand, right? Because you're going
Right.
to want to see, there's going to be interaction. It's so early, right, in terms of
Yeah.
how these things are going to work, right?
Hmm.
And so what you don't want is for there to be like these sort of discrete pockets of agents doing things that you can't track other than through whatever kind of element manager that
Yeah.
presents, right? You
Right.
want to be able to still see across those things. And that's why something like open tree is so important.
Right. Yeah. I mean, between the cost and the security and resiliency, of course, is more of a triple or quadruple edged sword that people are dealing with here, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of things to be a lot of things to keep your eye on for sure.
Hmm.
But I think that the potential for the payback is so large that I think that's why people are still pursuing it all, right? It's definitely showing promise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for sharing the insights from the report and chatting with me today. It's great to have you.
All right. Thanks so much, Beth. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
Likewise. Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to IT Ops Query. To learn more about enterprise software development and platform engineering, explore our content on Informa Tech Target sites. Find us on YouTube at our channel, Eye on Tech. Subscribe to our podcast to receive the latest episodes as they drop. And if you liked what you heard today, give us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Thank you for joining us.